right, thanks for joining us, everybody. Andrew and I were just talking about what a tough time slot this is. Last one of the day.
Oh, your time's not matter.
They're not exactly lining up for this, are they?
No. Ouch. Ouch. Ouch.
Anyway, thanks for coming to Andrew Burman's talk about the transition from hype to distribution.
You're supposed to be nice.
I am. I'm about to be super nice.
Yeah, I didn't pick the moderator.
I chose him.
I should have picked my mom.
Anyway, if you don't know Andrew, he is one of the dynamic co-founders of Other Half Brewing, who operate now in at least 3 states. Breweries, eight facilities in 3 states. One of the most successful stories in New York craft brewing for sure, and in the United States as well. And I'm proud to introduce my friend Andrew Burman, who will be talking about craft beer.
Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. I know a lot of you worked for us for some point in time, so it's nice to see some coworkers here. Felipe, Coy, Hillsborough. But I really appreciate everybody showing up. I know it is Friday afternoon, so it's always tough. When I started talking to the Brewers Guild about giving a talk here, sort of like what we should talk about it from our point of view, Other Half has changed dramatically over the last 10 years. When we started, we were a small tap room in the middle of Brooklyn, not really sure what the world was going to bring, and not really sure anyone was ever going to show up. Funny, that same feeling happened at the pandemic, but between those times we had some great exposure and really great, sort of groundswell of support from the community. Other Half started a little background between me, Matt Monahan, and Sam Richardson. We sort of had an idea that we wanted to make a brewery. We did some pop-ups and people thought it was cool, and then we were just dumb enough to believe that we could do it. I'm sure all of you have started your own breweries and had that same idea where I think I can do this better than anybody else. And eventually you sort of put that thought into reality, and it happens. But we did that. First year was great, tumultuous but great, and then we started putting beers into can, and about the first 5 years were what everybody else expected. It was rising tide. It was a good time. It was easy. A lot of people waited in lines for beers. It made sales pretty easy for us, and almost we took for granted how easy that was. The second the pandemic hit, our entire business model changed, and that is what we're sort of talking about here. 2019 was awesome. We had lines around the door, and it was we were popular. We put up an Instagram, beer sold. We walked away that night, and that was that. It was a great feeling. We were making great beer. A lot of the guys in this room were making great beer and helping us do that, and it was really fun. It was an awesome time. However, the second the pandemic started, we had to start transitioning our business model. And it went from come get our beer to how can we get beer to you. And that's sort of where our mentality has changed drastically from one side to the other. In 2020, I can't believe it's been 5 years since the pandemic. My daughter is now 6 years old, so I was surprised that she's grown so much in the pandemic, which was crazy. But it went straight from lines to distribution. On day one, we had, I think the day before the pandemic, we had a beer festival that was the most popular, the most profitable. There might be some pictures of me flying around with some wrestling outfit on, and it was generally a good time. And then literally that Monday, the world shut down. With that, we changed, and we started doing home delivery, which was something that I think some of you might do, but not everybody. We started doing a far greater distribution model. So it used to be about 80% of what we sold over the bar, and now and then it was about 20% in distribution, and overnight that sort of switched. And so we've adapted to that. I sort of day one of the pandemic was tough, but the hardest part was not knowing what the landscape was. And I think now with Paul leading the guild and some of the laws that have been changing, it's nice to know the rules are set and how we can adapt to them. One of those laws and one of those things that we've been doing is shipping. Our shipping model has been pretty good, but what we're even more proud of is the partnerships that we sort of had with those models. We use Halftime Beverage out of Burman and Poughkeepsie. They do a great job for us helping out. We use CBGNY. We have Serene helping us in other states. And I think that's really where we started switching our mentality, was instead of looking at distribution as sort of a adversarial relationship that was sort of taking advantage of us as craft brewers. We always felt like, they're taking a third of the percentage from us. Fuck them. Like, they don't deserve this. They didn't do anything for this. Why is that happening? And now we sort of been able to have a much more sort of robust conversation with them about what we need from them. And I think that's one thing that I would really state to all of you is distribution isn't bad at all. It's something that is really helpful for us. We've provided a model that basically helps us be who we are creatively and come out with new beers and use new hops and use the sort of things that we love doing as brewers. But also we have to sort of satisfy the need that is what Whole Foods or Wegmans really likes. And I think that's something that we really have strove for at Other Half recently and been pretty successful at. I will say in 2019, we made 387 unique beers, which is sort of insane. We still made 254, which is still crazy, but 387 was that was basically two products a week new. So that's a new beer label. That's an iteration on the label. That's something that the creative team had to touch. And then as we've evolved as a company, we've really sort of focused that. I know 254 sounds incredibly huge, but that also includes a lot of our flagships and a lot of stuff that we're just doing that starts the count at the new year. But that's something that we've really sort of seen change in our business models, that we aren't focused on 100% innovation 100% of the time. We are sort of trying to iterate on our recipes that are good. We are trying to make things that are better and better off of the same products again and again.
Is that truly unique products or SKUs?
That's unique SKUs.
Unique SKUs.
Yeah. It's a lot of...
So a half barrel, $6.
No.
Okay.
Oh, no. It's unique products.
Mm-hmm.
A SKU, one, yes. It's one...
So that went from 1 a day down to 5 a week.
Yeah. So it's a lot for us. Yeah. It does seem... It seems like a lot, and I think that's where... But as a brand that was based on innovation and creativity, how do you sort of focus on making sure you have core products and making sure that you have the same thing that you can get in Whole Foods, but also making something special for a taproom experience? Because I'm sure all of us are struggling with getting people into our tap rooms, and that's one thing that we've struggled with at Other Half, is with 8 tap rooms from DC and Philly and New York City and upstate in Western New York. It's getting people in the door and getting people to really enjoy our product enjoy our product with our hospitality, and that's been a major struggle. And so how we've tried to weigh those two things has really been one of the struggles we've had as we move forward. Please, if anybody ever has any questions, please feel free to speak out or raise your hand or whatever.
I have one. Okay. How many sites did you have when the pandemic came on?
2.
2.
We had 2 in 2019. Felipe was our head brewer at Finger Lakes at that point in time. And then, round of applause for that. And then in 2025, we have DC, Philadelphia, 3 in New York City, and 3 in Western New York, Buffalo, Canandaigua, and Bloomfield. So it's that we expanded in 2019 thinking that the world would stay the way it is, which was a big mistake. And we've been caught, I would say 2021, when these locations started coming online, it was a scramble to figure out how we can make sure that we are keeping the lights on, as well as making sure we're providing a great experience and beers out in the distribution. It was an interesting time. Anybody else have a question? Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah, like, so obviously I've been familiar, worked there, known you guys for a long time. The momentum, let's say hype, sure. The momentum that you guys had and the growth that you had in mind and have like executed, did you feel like there was kind of a dead zone? Like we got into the scale and the volume where now we have to break through to the other side before it becomes viable again, because I feel like along the way there's tiers that you level up into where there's infrastructure that's required,
Exactly.
spending and all that. Where do you feel like you're at now, and like breaking through to that as a regional brewery now, like mass production?
So Coy brings up a great point. So when we were a single brewery, we could make 8,000 barrels and be incredibly successful and incredibly profitable. Then we broke into Finger Lakes and we had to up that to about 12,000 barrels to be as successful and as to be as profitable at that point in time. When we opened up DC, we hit that valley and we had to make sure that we were making about 32,000 barrels of beer to be profitable. And then now with the new locations that are just tap rooms, we make about 36,500 barrels, and we need to be profitable. We have to make 36,000 barrels. So it's one of those things that we have to keep pushing, because we can make up to about 42,000 barrels right now in our footprint. And it's how do we get there? And that's a lot of what our strategy, what our thought is how do we get to that next peak and stay at that peak and not go to that next valley.
Yeah, the distribution, I mean, the range of margin you get based on how you sell the beer.
100%.
And how that shifts is just like kind of a mind fuck.
It is. But that's all of our numbers are based on having that information and making sure that we're getting a profitable price per barrel margin, because a lot of it comes down to those really base numbers of how much money am I selling it for and how much money did it cost me to make. And so I think that's a really great point. But we're trying to get to that next peak. And I'm sure you all have those numbers in your head and what your brewery can produce. But I encourage you all to know those numbers. One of my big takeaways when I was running through this is knowing your numbers, knowing how much it costs to make a barrel of beer, truly how much it costs, your costs, what your salary is, everything in the grain, the hops, everything in it. Because that's the real number of what we have to deal with in the 2025 landscape is how much of that beer, did it cost you to make and how much are you selling it for? And it took us a good amount of time to get that actual number with all our locations to be like, on average, we need to sell beer for X number to make sure we're making a profit and to break even.
What percentage of those SKUs are going into distribution versus just through breweries?
It's like you were in a meeting with me this morning. We had we actually have a really big debate going on within the brewery right now. About 90%, 95% of what we make goes into distribution at that 254 number. So pretty much everything is going into distribution because we have a want for it, or people are looking for it, and we have good distribution partners and they are making orders for it. So we feel we have to fulfill that and make sure we're going. But that takes away from our on-premise business. That takes away, if we don't have something special in the tap rooms, if you can get something at Wegmans, why the hell are you coming into Canandaigua? That's a big question we have all the time. And I think that's something we all struggle with here is how are we going to do something special from the brewery down the street to make sure that we're different and make sure that people come in and see us. And that can be anywhere from a great event space that you have at Industrial Arts, or it can be live music, or it can be amazing pizza at Collage Cellars to TBD, or it's coming soon. And I think that's where a lot of us have really, at other half, have really tried to look forward is what can we do that separates us from all of your breweries, but on the same token, what can you do to separate from all of us? And that was what's really hard when we're putting out 95% of what we make to Wegmans down the street, or to Whole Foods, or to the bottle shop. And so we actually, with some of our bigger events and some of our events that we're working with on a monthly basis, we do some fun activations. We're trying to make sure that those beers are actually made in much less quantity so that they're actually never making it into distribution. Or if we do, maybe 1 or 2 beers are made in quantity and a couple others are just made for in-house. With that, I know there's been a lot of talk about marketing in this. One of the things that I was tasked with when we started was we have a wide variety of labels, but this was our flagship. It's called Green City. We've been making it for probably 8 years now. It's a Citra-based IPA. It's great, but it started with the one all the way to your left. It was Green Label, a very New York background, very minimalistic, understated. It was if you know, you know, and which was nice and it was cool and it was I think looking back you're like, how can you expect someone to buy this? They can't even read it. But as we sort of evolved as a company, we started seeing like, okay, cool, we have to do something that separates us out. How can we make it look a little better? So we just inverted some colors. That's iteration number 2. And then about 3 years ago, we said, this beer is probably going to make up 20% of what we make as we go forward. How are we going to market this beer? How are we going to show this beer off? How are we going to make sure that it's not necessarily New York City based, but New York-y based or New York based in a way. And so we came with a much more geometric, much bolder, much more eye-catching, and much more focused on the other half of the brand than just this beer than any of the rest of them have. And then I was talking to our can provider upstairs, and we're working on getting printed cans, which are once the right. And so that's probably hitting our markets in the next 2 months, 3 months. You guys are seeing something no one has seen yet. No one in the company's even seen yet. But we this is something that I feel very strongly about, is that the marketing side of it is something that we sort of bypass by saying, oh, that looks cool, we'll be fine. Oh, that looks cool, it'll sell. And now we're sort of meeting people where they are. If this beer is on the shelf, how is it going to talk to somebody? How is it going to be seen? Before we're just selling a beer because people are waiting in line. It didn't really matter. We could have sold a blank can probably, and people would have been happy. Now, the hops are on it. There's tasting notes. There is a quick blurb about the brewery on the side. There's a UPC code, which I would have 10 years ago said we will never do. The things where we sort of matured as a company, and I encourage you all to sort of look at what you're doing in your distribution footprint and what you can do to sort of bring more light to your brewery. Yeah, you only might make 500 barrels of beer, but if you can make 800 barrels of beer and get some into distribution, that's probably a little bit more money. And it's just having these thoughts when you're getting into these conversations is really helpful. I know as Jeff and I both have bigger breweries, some of these things are not second nature, but learned over a lot of mistakes. And I would love for you guys to take away and think like, oh yeah, like I can make a cool label that also can go into Wegmans. They're not mutually exclusive anymore. And it's really having a good salesperson, which I would really, really recommend. Somebody who meets your ethos and somebody who really wants to be your, emissary in some situations, has really been helpful for us. And I think that's something we learned post-pandemic, and really showing how to, along with marketing, sales and marketing obviously go together, but really talking to them and what they need. I think some of you came in early. We're actually rebranding our lager as well, because our lager has I'll show you that afterwards. It's a white label. I'll take a consensus. No one knows what we're supposed to do. It's a white label, and it has a focus group. Yeah, it has a snapped finger on it, and it's supposed to be an understated lager. But I'm like, no one knows who this is. No one knows what breweries it's from. No one knows what it's called. No one knows the style because it's too shiny to tell. And 5 years ago we would have said it's fine, sell it. And now we're sitting there thinking, what can we do to sell this beer better? Where can we meet our consumers? And that goes along with so many other things, but it's really been helpful for us. So we basically did this study with about 50 to 100 of our SKUs that are made on a yearly basis. So each one of them sort of got a touch rebranded, hops label, like the hops are on the label, UPC codes, a little bit more information, because we found that once we put that on, it hit another level of sales, and it also gave people a little bit more to chew on when they're sitting there trying to make a decision of 50 different craft beers. Because I think all of our brands have power in our local markets. All of our brands have some people recognize them, people see them, and you want to make sure that they can recognize it on a shelf and see your brand and go through it and be like, oh, I support these guys. This is what I believe in. And then one thing that's been also successful for us is sort of going from this hype style where we just put up an Instagram and it worked. We've been doing a lot more manicured sort of weeks or manicured sort of events that are taproom focused. So those 300 beers that we made, a lot of the ones that don't make it out of house are in these weeks. So we have a week just focused on Citra. We have a week focused on Souths. We have a week called Munchies Week, which is all of our like silly little like broccolis and cabbages, and I think there's one that's a California roll this year. That was not my decision. It's a West Coast beer, so it works.
Do these across all 8
We
locations?
do these across all 8 locations, and we do these, and these have been in really, really successful for us. We might partner with a poutine guy to be there for the week as well, for the Munchies Week, and we might, Munchies Week is right around 420 as well for any of you. It's sort of playing into that, and I think that's been really helpful for us. And I think I know we all have the trivias, and I know we all have pop-ups, and I know we have, makers markets and stuff, but I do encourage you to try to think, what can you do at your local level to do something that's special and that your consumers would care about. These have been really, really successful for us. Even the Trillium and Friends, we don't actually do Trillium that much anymore. It's more like a week where we're trying to do some beers that we don't necessarily normally do. It's something that we reach out to our friends to say, hey, can we do this with you? Can we do that? Sort of innovate and sort of push what we do as a company as well. Do any of you have like special events or weeks that you find really successful?
I was Freaky Friday about there, dude.
Sam. Anybody have any good events that are in your tap rooms that you feel like in this ilk?
We have a collaboration with Stout Month in January, which is generally our worst month of the year.
Yeah, as that.
So, there's 8 breweries.
Yeah.
Much cars. Hopefully people will go to all 8 breweries in one day.
It might though.
We want to kind of hit a weekend or 2 weekends. And
Yeah, and that's a great example of like how to garner excitement around the group and have it like whether it could be a mixed firm month or stout month or whatever it might be. But these have really shown to speak to our audience, and obviously
Well, at Community Brewers, we used to do a barley wine festival, and then sort of fell off. But that was like in February. It was like a weirdly well attended one, and the investment on our end was very low. Right, you have the space or whatever. Before this, I was thinking as you guys are you're a very large arena, and you've got wide distribution from a labeling standpoint. Maybe a little bit off base, but are you worried about the nutritional requirement stuff now? Is that something like as you're coming up with labels, are you saying, are we going to allow space for that and talk to your design people about that?
On the printed cans, we have allowed some space, and so there is some like space that we can play with in case laws do change, and obviously we go over state lines as well, so some stuff does change, but right now we're sort of at bay with that. Just trying to make sure that we're we're doing what's legally required at this point to make sure that we're still doing cute. Like we get caught in some of the don't market alcohol to children sort of things with like with like cute cat. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we are conscious of it, and I do talk to some of our lawyers at times about it. But I really encourage this is something that we definitely wouldn't have done 5 years ago, but I really feel like this is something that has been a cornerstone of our business in the last couple of years. Just giving people sort of what they want and meeting them again where they are. Maybe having fun beers with Citra, or maybe having, we did also a Mosaic week, but no one cared, so we stopped doing it. And and so we do a New Zealand one and a Citra one. But it's really fun, and I really feel like everybody in this room has ideas for that sort of stuff, and how you can use those ideas to get your audience a little bit more excited to come out. And that's something look, we have 8 tap rooms, and they all do okay. It's not like it was. It's still a struggle to get people out, and so it's really, these are the things that would help us, make 15% more in a month, make 20% more in a month. We feel like these little things have really turned the corner for us as we keep evolving. So this is, something that we, sort of go back and forth about, how as your sort of hype fades, what becomes important? If you're not chasing a new beer, or you're not chasing a new, untapped rating, what are people really looking for? And we really felt it was consistency and quality. So we put a lot more effort into that and making sure that you'd be surprised that with 3 breweries, even our Green City beer that you saw had 3 different recipes somehow. Not blaming you, Felipe, but it would be recipes sort of like walked and sort of just started evolving on their own a little bit. And so we've put a lot of effort into consistency and quality over the last 5 years, and making sure that the beer is as good as it can be in the tap room, but also if you go to the Albany Ale and Oyster House, the Green City tastes as good as it does in the tap rooms. And that's really been was a really, really big struggle with us, as a lot of us use a finicky English ale strain for our beers. It's sometimes not known for longevity. We try to make sure that we are taking care of our beers. So we centrifuge them now, centrifuging them properly, making sure that they're stable as they can be, making sure that DOs are low, and making sure that overall that the beer has quality and can be sit on the shelf for a little bit, which I think that all of us would never want beer to sit on the shelf, but it's just the reality of the situation as we go. And it's making sure that when somebody goes in there, that they're still excited to try other half, or any other of our breweries. I think that's one thing that we have to show, is that when they try that beer, they're still trying to get back to that original experience they had when they waited in line or when they had it first. So that's something that we really do. Customer experience is something that's completely evolved too. I don't know if you've ever been to another half location, but it was, to say the least, a surly environment on day one, when people were coming into an armpit of Brooklyn underneath a BQE. Our bartenders were a touch tougher, a touch, edgier, we'll say. And it didn't, as that, did you say you had that experience? I'm just kidding.
No, it was great. My experience the first time was great, but it's a very tough neighborhood.
Yeah. So it was a different world, and it was definitely something that we've really evolved. I've seen a bunch of you in the tap room, and I know when Anthony was a bartender, and it was a tougher environment. It was, you're coming here because you're in the know and you know something that other people don't, and there's sort of like a club mentality of it. As we sort of have pushed beyond that original tap room, we've really put a lot of effort into our hospitality and making sure people are welcomed and really met in a way that makes them feel like they're part of a new club. They might have, as we all know, the demographics getting older, and if they started drinking other half beer at 35 with no kids and they were having fun and waiting in line, now they're 47 years old and they have 2 kids and they're like, I can't get out to other half and to buy it, to get a beer. So what's the next best thing? And it's trying to get those people that are 47 now, like me, and have 2 kids and want to go to the brewery. How do you get sure that they're comfortable, but also how do you make people that are really excited to be there comfortable? But then also, how do you get that experience when they're buying it at a grocery store or at your bottle shop? And I think that's where we've really made a more robust customer experience in our tap rooms, but then also really tried to make our website more easier to navigate and get more information off of it. And then also, we didn't have phone numbers before, so you could never call the tap room because it wouldn't go anywhere. And now we have phone numbers and we have online stuff. Yes, I know you're all laughing at this stuff, but these are things that we had to learn. And I feel like where we had to keep moving forward and keep getting that customer experience better and better. And then it all flows into the, why love Other Half? Why do you want to buy our beer, be part of that club? And it's, it could be nostalgia when you were there 10 years ago, or it could be because there's a trivia event now, or we do a lot more private parties, so you might have gone to like a a bachelor party there or something like that. And so we're really trying to showcase ways to find other half that aren't, just like, oh cool, I found this really cool brewery underneath the BQE. Now we're sort of in the mainstream. We have to sort of meet people a little bit better and show them what we're doing, and constantly work on ways for them to love us in a way, if that makes any sense to you. All right, I've been talking a lot, just not helping at all. So if anybody else has any questions.
You're kind of taking off some of the things that you're bringing new people into the tap room, or ways that they can interact with you in a different way than they did initially in-house. Do you mind speaking a little more to what you're doing to sort of talk about who you are and project that if they're just picking up a 4-pack at a grocery store or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that we trying to get our personality or our ethos into a can on a grocery store shelf is literally a problem for everyone from dish soap to whatever. It's and I think what we're trying to do is be partners with not only a distribution company, but be partners with the Whole Foods or with the Wegmans or with the bottle shop down the street. So whether it's like co-posted or saying, hey guys, you can come and get it here, or shelf talkers, we have like little like pamphlets, things like that. That's where we've been trying to push a little bit more. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it is an interesting sort of world where, if we're all in competition together and we're all on a shelf, how do people know what other half is there? And I think we're really trying to do it in those ways that I just said. But I think the one that helps most is actually just having salespeople or go into the store once every 3 months and say, hey, how's this selling? Is there anything I can do? Making sure that the people who are actually selling the beer are supported and have some sort of knowledge about your own company. And in our Western New York distribution footprint, a lot of our stuff goes through that path. It's like, hey, everything all right? Can I help you? What can I do? Can I get you into the tap room? We do a lot of tours and a lot of tastings for our distribution partners on the ground. So it's like, come in, once a year. Wegmans is coming in once a year. The Whole Foods people come in. We're constantly going out there, and then like, hey, we're doing a tasting. We're the first people to sign up. I think that's a lot where they feel supported, and that sort of comes back to us. We didn't want to ever be a brand where it's like, it's there and be like, oh yeah, you can just go buy it there, it's fine. I think that's what we do. Did you have a question right there?
Yeah, we're in a portfolio that has roughly 60 to 65 other breweries in it.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the distributors asking us to make, specialty beers for them constantly. We don't really have the need for it. Should we just do everything to help them out and actually do it? Even though they're like, this might work, it might not work.
I guess it really depends on your appetite. We do a lot more communication with Craft Brewers Guild, for example, of what they're asking for, what they're looking for, what they need. The piece of advice that I would get is getting ahead of it. A lot of times they're always like, oh, can we have an Oktoberfest? You're like, it's September. I can't get you an Oktoberfest. Like, we are trying to have conversations with them about Oktoberfest, and like now, we're trying to have conversations about what stouts they would want in the next month or two. And that's been a lot more helpful with our with distribution and production, because 6 months from now, if they're like, hey, we're going to take 200 cases of X beer, can you help us out? You're like, no problem, I'll work with you, we'll talk about it. We've sort of put the line in the sand where it's like, you don't get anything in 3 months. If you're talking to us about something in June, that's like the bare minimum of what we need. And I think that has been helpful, because then they have guidelines to ask you questions about, and you have sort of like a sanity check, being like, I'm not running around to do this for you when you're still going to buy the IPA I made anyway. Like, and that's been really helpful to us, and we push a lot on what's going to be additive, what's going to be incremental for us. We still need you to take all this beer, but what would help you take this a little bit more? Because we make a lot of IPAs, so these conversations really do happen with us, where it's like, hey, I know you can only take whatever 200 cases of these IPAs. Would you take 20 more of like a Hefeweizen? And they're like, oh yeah, sure, of course I would do that. And I think that's where the conversation sort of flows with us, is like, how can we help you and both of us be happy about it?
How much of your distribution is your own versus working with a wholesaler?
It's about 50-50.
50-50? How do those help inform each other?
So Jeff's referring to, we do self-distribution in Western New York. Craft Brewers Guild helps us in basically the east northern parts of the state, and then Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens we do ourselves as well, and a little bit of Long Island, and then we also do northern New Jersey ourselves, and then our DC location does DC and Maryland self-distribution. We have help in Pennsylvania, we have help in New York, we have help in Ohio, we have help in southern New Jersey. The decisions to what we make are really garnered by a lot of those conversations with those distributors. Our sales guys are, as I've said, are great and are really on the ground, but a lot of times they're not the most strategic thinkers. I will say, I don't want to give any kudos to Craft Brewers Guild, but at the same time, there's more strategic thinking and they look ahead. And so that's been really helpful with those conversations. Our self-distribution pattern is great, we get it there, but a lot of them are really much more hand to mouth. They're like, I have this IPA, I'm selling this IPA, I have this stout, I'm selling this stout. But when we have these partnerships with bigger distributors, they're looking out and they're seeing what's going on, and they're helping us sort of forecast and dictate what we make a little bit. Not like we're changing everything we do, but we take their advice and we want to work together as a partnership in that sense. Did you have a question over here? I didn't see that. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. This is super helpful. I'm sure I speak for the group.
I hope. I'm very nervous and I'm not talking very clearly. So I'm sorry.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
You're doing great. We appreciate it. I personally really appreciate it. So I have like a million questions in my head. I'll try to get out of it. But at what point obviously you guys have had a long career at this moment, healthy, where did your focus shift to distribution, and was it a business plan where it was really, it was pretty concrete, hey, year one we're not going to do it, year two we're going to start, and then was it dictated by the climate of what was going on?
It was dictated a lot by the climate, but I will say we have an amazing staff, and I think that even the guys who are brewers in this room were always willing to put a little bit more effort in to help us out. They knew sort of hey, the world's changing, we got to figure it out. It was fly by the seat of our pants a little bit in 2020. The day that pandemic hit and we had a walk-in full of beer and a tap room full of beer, literally the tap room was full of beer. We couldn't put it away in the walk-ins. And we were like, what the fuck are we gonna do? And it was a scramble. These guys were here and they saw it, and it was we were trying to figure out what we were going to do. And I remember vividly, we had a staff meeting and I was like, if we fail, we're going to fail fucking huge. We're gonna have thousands of cases of beer and we're gonna do it. And I think that mentality of all of us are gonna work together to figure out what we're gonna do was what got us to where we are. A lot of people stopped producing. A lot of people weren't sure where they were gonna get the beer. We knew that there would be a market for the beer if we made it, and we had that mentality as much as we can. You
did home delivery for longer than most, right?
We're still doing it.
You're still doing it.
Yeah. Well, now we ship it, but it's yeah. But a lot of the, again, I think Paul Leone is giving a speech about SLA laws right now. I don't know if there was one before this, but know the laws. That's what was really helpful to us. My brother's our CFO, and we would, and I don't know if all of you guys know Elke. She's our lawyer as well. There was hours and hours of conversations about what we can do, what we can't do, what we can get into beer people's hands, and how can we move it. A lot of that spurn and a lot of that innovation came from the pandemic because we had to figure out what to do. And it was really kind of fun as well, also incredibly stressful, but it was something that we sort of evolved and figured out. It was never year 5 we were going to do this, year 7 we were going to do this, year 1 we were supposed to make 300 barrels. And year 5, we were supposed to make 800 barrels was our business plan. So all that sort of we've fixed it, I guess. It would have been much easier if we did that, but then I probably wouldn't be standing here. So some of the, we have about 45 minutes in. I just want to say some of the things that I really learned over the last 5 years that really changed my mentality from being a small brewery, so to say, or just a brewery that we got most of our stuff out, to this was sort of focus on what you do well and what's different than everybody else. Whether you have a farm brewery, whether you have a mixed ferm brewery, whether you have a stout brewery, whatever it might be, focus on that, and then get the partnerships with the distribution, but also have those partnerships within the tap room. Have those people that you can rely on. Not all of us, I was in a tap room conversation before this, like, we all can't be pouring the beer as well as making the beer as well as delivering the beer. There's an old adage that I learned in my business class was you can't work on your business and in your business at the same time. And a lot of that really stems from how can you get other people to work in your business and show them what you care about and show them what it is. And it's really just knowing what you are as a company and knowing how to get that information in your tap room. Second one was like sort of the question that you had about styles and what we're making. Again, we make sort of styles that we hopefully think people want, but it's a customer-centric innovation. We're having constant feedback. We do look at Untapped, I'm sure all of you do. We do sort of think about where we're going and what we need to make to sort of have a little bit more sales. Again, as I said, at 36,000 barrels, we break even, but if we're able to get to 37,000 barrels, we are a far more profitable company, and it's far better for us. And it's just that little bit more. 36 to 37,000 barrels sounds like a huge amount, but it's only a couple more percentage points for us. And everybody has those percentage points in your thing. So how can you just push out a little bit more? And then how to market for the goals that you have set up your company. You saw some of our marketing pushes, but what works for you? What can you do? What can you do as a farm brewery in Brooklyn, Coy? What can you do as a mixed firm? What can you do to sort of show what you do better than anybody else and let people know that you do that better than us? A lot of times people come in and be like, oh, what's your best beer? And you're like, oh, Green City's our best beer. It's the one we make the most of. People love it. It's sort of an introductory. That one phrase took me like years to get the tap room to say. They never knew what they should be pushing. And to no fault of their own, we never told them. And it's just having if we're trying to move these beers, we should be talking about these beers on Instagram, in our tap rooms, and everything like that. Strong leadership has really been helpful for us. With the two partners I have, Matt and Sam, are both great. Sam is a very creative person and amazing at that. He is not the best when it comes to making sure we're getting 99% efficiency on our grain. And so we sort of hired those holes. And I think that's where we sort of learned a little bit. You guys shouldn't have laughed that hard on that one. You know too much. Sam's amazing. But he's great at picking hops. He's great at recipes. He's great at creative. But that's as you start moving in your businesses. What do other people do? What can people add on to you? We all cannot do everything. Jeff was a brewer when I met him, and now he's dealing with
Nobody knows what.
Yeah, well, he's dealing with contracts, and we're talking about like a lot more things that are different. And he's working on the business to get more business in, and not necessarily a recipe. And I think that's a lot of the lessons that we learned is how do you know enough about yourself to get out of your business and give people a little bit more reins to show. Maybe they will not do exactly what you do, but it might be 99% as good, and it'll it'll make you a little bit more sane. And then a final thing is what I spoke about earlier is looking at the numbers, knowing what COGS is, knowing what payroll is, knowing what you're spending on things, having a budget for tap rooms, having a budget for whatever you do. I think that's been incredibly helpful for us because once we knew the numbers, in 2020, we had no idea what we spent. We had no idea. We knew what Square rang in at the end of the week, and we sort of knew there were some invoices coming in, and that was basically our checks and balances system. Now we have an accounting person, and we know what payroll is every week. We know what our spending is. We know where we're putting money. We know that there is something coming up that we want to buy that we need to save for. And I really, really encourage all of you to sort of take that step back and look at that, because a lot of great information comes off of that. A lot of information about what beers you should make, because you finally know how much money you're making on them, who your can provider is. I encourage you to fight really hard with your camp providers at all points in time. Shout out Steven. Steven does all our package exchange, and I've had too many fights with him about camp prices. But really fight with your cardboard. Really push, because all those little things matter. And you guys have a lot more control than you think. Okay, I think I covered a lot of ground.
Still have a few minutes.
No, so if there's any questions or any other thoughts, if not, I'm going to throw up our new logos and you want to take a look.
Just a small question, talking about like creating these partnerships with distribution partners and whatnot. Do you have any advice on like sort of things to look out for like smaller breweries signing up with distribution partners? It's obviously like, you guys built up a nice reputation once you started distro and finally were able to like dictate some of your terms. Not everyone has.
Go slow. To be honest, I know that I know for you, you're starting. You're not going to make 1,000 barrels to start with, but if you make a couple hundred, maybe you move all those 100 in the tap rooms, and you can slowly creep into distribution and do some self-distribution to start with. Especially in New York, it's nice, but I think go slowly and really. The amount of distributors we talk to in an area that we have like Manhattan is a distributor in Manhattan and Brooklyn and stuff, and we will probably never use them, but we are friends with them, and we constantly check prices. We constantly are talking to them to sort of see what Craft Brewers Guild doing, or what Union's doing, or what anybody else or Serene's doing. So it's nice to have a couple friends that are in the distribution game, so that they can really help you along the way. They're friendly, and they want to help you because they want your business. Because you just got to glean stuff off of them a little bit of times.
Just to that point, I think for as long as anyone can distribute on your own, like do that for as long as possible.
Agree. Yeah.
Maintaining these relationships, because and again, like, we don't make all that money, and as soon as it leaves the tap room, we're losing a lot of that. And then we have great distribution partners through the folks that we work with out in Buffalo, but that 32% is like a lot of money.
Goes quick.
So you don't need to give that up. And like if you're in New York City, I get it. Like New York City, fuck that. Driving around that town is a nightmare. It's worth it in many ways, just to not have one of your people in traffic for 9 hours a day dropping off beer. But like out in Buffalo, like where we are, like we can get anywhere. And for a lot of folks, if you have the ability to distribute by your own, keep it in-house for as long as you can, while still, you gotta be friends with them.
Yeah.
They're good people. They're gonna be really good.
I'm gonna completely echo that. If I could have done it again at year like 5 or 6, I would have probably taken an offer from Union, because it was a great time for the market. They were offering good money, and it was also like at that time that in that valley that Coy was speaking about, where it's like we were making enough beer, we were doing well, and we had enough trucks, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, we need to make more beer to make money, and then all of a sudden it was 3 new trucks, 6 new employees, we have a distribution warehouse in Brooklyn, having that rent and having these other things. And so I think sometimes you just sort of like, that's knowing the numbers. It's really knowing those numbers. So it's like, cool, if I can do 1,000 barrels myself, great. But like if I do 2,000, if they're promising 2,000, what's that scenario look like? And what they can do to help, and how much more trucks do I need, and things like that. Because it's all a numbers game, so in some sense.
Just one of the self-distro stuff, how are you guys managing your account intake and subsequent sales reporting internally?
Okay.
Across your PODs?
We are just switching to Encompass right now.
Okay.
We were using Obeer, which was
hard. Yeah.
Difficult. I don't know if they're here, so I'm just letting that go. We used we used a variety of different, but that one little phrase that you just said, that one question, is taking us hours and years off of our life. It's but hopefully what we're saying, Encompass is taking over. I don't know if you guys know Encompass or Obeer, they're both ERPs, sort of like giving inventory and sales software. Encompass is a little bit more robust. Obeer has no sales really, it just makes invoices. Encompass has been really helpful because it has routing software, it has the you can use it on your phone, you can edit orders in real time, and then also it's been much more helpful with the invoicing because it's emailed. It's also much more just much more intuitive.
Are you integrating that with your brewery software?
It is.
Encompass is a really nice distribution software. It's very hard to integrate with something. It's very, very hard to integrate.
Yeah.
We have one person's job to take all of our Google Sheets information and put it into Obeer right now. That same person will have a little bit lesser job in Encompass, but all of our recipes, all of our schedule is in Google. It's in Google in all of our Google Sheets. It's a lot. It's a huge folder. And right now, all the POs are built by one person to put in Obeer. That'll change a little bit, but it's not easy.
Do manufacturing in Obeer.
Do manufacturing in Obeer, yeah. Yes?
I'm curious how you guys separate what you sell in the tap room versus what you sell into distribution, like per style, not just like.
So how we allocate beer is a sort of a convoluted process. Right now we have a sales-driven schedule. I didn't talk at all about this. It used to be a schedule based on 100% what we felt like making. We want to make a double IPA. We want to make a single IPA. We need this for yeast health. Let's throw a lager in. Now it's 100% based on what we think we can sell. So we usually say, we need to have, the summer's coming up, we need 90 barrels of lager for this, or we need that. A lot of it's just become sales driven. That's how it's become. And so basically our schedule is put in, and then our sales guys put allocations in for it. And then they're responsible for selling that. And then the tap rooms will say, I'm responsible for selling X number. It's not the best process, but it's been helpful. And with a good POS system, we can look at a year to date and see what we did last year to sort of judge how much beer we should take for the tap rooms. Yes, sir.
Your sales reps, how many stops did you make a week? Because earlier we were told a number that seemed wildly low to me.
What was that number?
20. If you're at distro, 20 spaces a week. That's it.
I do 15 a day.
That's too low. I thought you were going to go the other way. Our guys do, in the city, they do somewhere between 10 and like 20 a day, depending on where they're going, depending on what they have to sell, depending on if it's account visits or cold calls. The guys in Buffalo we have one guy in Buffalo who does probably 5 to 10 a day, a lot more account maintenance and some new accounting, but they're responsible for at least doing 10 to 15 a day.
Yeah, they were saying 20 a week, which was
no, I mean, I don't know if any of us are right or wrong in this situation, but I think
huge volume accounts.
Yeah, it's yeah. I don't know. We push our sales guys pretty hard, and each one of our sales guys does good numbers, and we only have like 8 of them through our entire footprint. So there's 3 upstate, 3 in our southern area, DC, Maryland, Virginia, and then 2 in the city. And we've always been worried about like having too many sales guys because they can't hit accounts then and can't. But right now, I know my sales guy yesterday did like 12 calls in Manhattan because I was like, "What are you doing today?" Because I never know what they're doing when they leave the office. But any other questions or any thoughts? No. Well, I truly appreciate all of you coming and listening. And if you have any questions, it's just Andrew at Other Half Brewing. I'm happy to share any knowledge we have or anything that might be helpful. Appreciate you all coming.
Thanks, Andrew. This was great. Let's vote on.
Okay.
Let's vote on your newest.
Hey, guys, you get to say it. So.
You were in that one, right?
Let me see who it is.
If I hit 20 accounts.
So, guys, we're rebranding our snaps. Everybody here can have an opinion. Okay, it's a white label now. So it's a rice lager.
Yeah.
So what do we like? Do we like the blue one? That's not our lineup. Do we like the green one? The pink one? This is the base ones. I kind of do like the purple, but whatever.
I like the lavender. What?
Yeah.
I like the lavender, but I don't like the...
Yeah. This is the one that's been in tight debate as well.
I like that better.
Yeah.
That's easier to...
You think that this like aqua is better to see?
Yeah, with the lavender.
Ooh. orange is like one I really like, but it doesn't have consensus.
That's my favorite color.
Yeah, it's not this orangey though. Yeah.
Do lavender with yellow.
I'll ask Kat. We're doing a printed all. Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate everybody for having an opinion. Hopefully you'll see this on shelves sooner or later. Thank you all.